Oh, hey, I'm live. Sweet. Okay, so this is actually really live. I haven't done this before, so if you're joining me live, thanks and sorry for all the hesitation here because I haven't done this before, not on YouTube, and I've tried it and it didn't work. And I've got some things set up, but I got a lot of things to learn before I get good at this. So this will be the first one, and I'll do many more once I get it figured out. I get my things set up to properly do the recording, and I can keep an eye on comments and things. Right now, I may see comments, I may not. I've got computer and iPad set up, but I don't know how that all operates. So I'm just going to wing it today. Kind of like what I'm doing in the studio. I've been working on these things, these small pieces, trying some new ideas out. I like to have a few of these when I do shows, and eventually I'll probably sell these online on my website. I gotta get my cart and stuff set up. But little bees, little hearts, playing with some different ideas, different materials. I actually did some yesterday that I used a little silver leaf. I don't know if you may not be able to tell much on here. You really can't. There's a little shine to it. But the honeycomb there, I did some silver leaf on it. Yeah, I've been playing with hearts, different shapes and images. I've done a few things like this before, but I'm trying to spend at least a day or two in the studio a week when I'm getting in between larger paintings where I just play some things like this. That's where you learn a lot, just testing some ideas out, and you don't feel like you've invested too much time if it doesn't work out. So I really like that when it works small. And sometimes when it works, maybe I don't love the way it turned out, somebody else might. So it's good to have a variety of things, different textures, colors, patterns, just in case somebody wants that look. So what I'm gonna do today is just get in here and I've cut the paper on these 4 pieces. Everything's in place. I'm gonna burnish the magazine ink into the beeswax, sand it, spray it with water, and it takes paper off. If you're following me, you've probably seen my videos before. Now you get to see it live. I don't guess there's much benefit in seeing it live right now because I don't see comments, but once we get that figured out, it'll be nice to be able to watch me do it and ask questions, and we can talk back and forth like Crafty Mama does on her site. I really want to do that. And when we get to that point, we'll have a lot more fun. So right now, you just get to watch me work. I don't know, I may not have a whole lot of people watching live. It's Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock. It may not be a good time for this, but I figured since I was in the studio just playing around with some ideas, this would be a good time to just play around with the live video feed and see what happens. Worst case, I have a video recorded that you can watch at another time. And I saved you the boring part of me sitting here cutting paper. Although I may do that once I get the live thing figured out. We can chat while I'm sitting there cutting paper, and I can talk to you about the color choices I make and textures and things like that. Because that's as much important as the technique itself. Choosing the proper colors, knowing which ones work well together. I think it's important anyhow. Okay. These little blocks are easy to burnish. I just have a wood block here, piece 2x4 that I've cut into a triangle shape. I've been using this for years. It's picked up a lot of ink from the magazine papers. It's kind of a really cool tool. So I'm burnish the paper in like that. Then I just grab some 220 sandpaper and give it a quick sand. I'm removing the gloss off the back of the magazine paper, so when I spray it with water, it'll absorb into the paper, and then it gets mushy basically, and I take my finger and I can rub away the paper, but the ink is sticking to the beeswax. And a lot of people ask about the base of my paintings. I'm using beeswax straight from a beekeeper. I'm actually getting it before it's even filtered, so it's comes straight out of the hives in big clumps. It's got all kinds of junk in it, and instead of doing the filtering process or however they do it, I just put it in a crock pot, let all the impurities go to the bottom, and sometimes I get floaters in there. And that's kind of take a strainer and pull that stuff off the top, let the impurities go to the bottom, and I just stick my brush in the top where the wax is melted and brush it on. The benefit of using the honey or the beeswax from the beekeeper is there's still honey in the beeswax. So even when I put it on, I get chunks of honey in there, and it's tackier than encaustic medium. Encaustic medium has Damar resin in it, and it's really filtered beeswax. So it doesn't have the tackiness. It has some tackiness, it'll work. It's just not as good as using the real deal. Plus I don't have to ventilate my studio when I melt wax, because it didn't have anything in it that could be harmful. I like that. Although I still have to spray it with a Kamar resin. That's Kamar by Krylon. It's archival, and it puts a nice even sheen on top of the painting, and it protects it from UV lighting. So when I do spray that, I have to go out in the garage and wear a ventilator, and the weather's got to be perfect. You know, I do have to deal with that issue when I get a painting done. Normally what I'll do, especially in the wintertime, is, you know, living in Tennessee, you know, from week to week you could have 60, 70 degree weather. So if it's not raining and it's a little warmer, I'll have a couple of paintings that I've finished sitting and waiting. I'll take advantage of the good weather when I can. Otherwise, I just wait till there's warm weather. In the summertime, of course, it's not an issue. Just don't want to spray when it's on damp days. That's all I got for a solution to protect it right now. I used to use this acrylic medium. It was called Wax Sealer. It was, I think, originally made for encaustic painters that did encaustic on cards, paper stock. And it worked. I actually have several paintings from 2010, 2011 that I did. It brushed on just like any acrylic medium. The only thing is, I don't believe it's archival. But the paintings I did, 8 years ago, still look just as good as the day I did them. So apparently it's some protection there. I'm not too worried about it. All right, so I got these sanded. So to start, I'm gonna spray a little water on a piece of t-shirt. Some cotton. I'm just gonna wipe off the dust. I'll tell you why here in just a second. First, I want to get the dust off so I don't just spread it in my studio. I like to keep it kind of dust free. But then I want to take off this outer layer of paper, the negative areas. It's a whole lot easier to get off when it's not completely wet. Then all that's left on there is the magazine paper. where I'm getting my transfer. Sometimes it still doesn't come off that easy. I'm always worried, especially on the little beads, of pulling off the leg or something. That's happened. So if it looks like it's gonna pull off my transfer part, I just leave a regular paper on there until I get it wet, and I'll just rub it out. So if you're just joining and you're live and you're commenting and I'm not answering, it's because I don't see the comments. I've got the screen up from YouTube, but it's not showing comments. So I apologize. I'm brand new at this live video thing on YouTube. I'll have to get on YouTube and do some more research on how to do this properly. I did a Periscope for a while there, and it was great, but it got to the point where not many people were going to Periscope. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Facebook and Periscope are one now. Who knows? Facebook's kind of taking over everything. I think I've done Facebook maybe once. I'm hoping that YouTube's going to be the way to go. Time will tell. All I can do is kind of go with it. Learn as I go. So I do see I have 2 people watching, according to my YouTube channel on my iPad. Okay. So now I got the majority of the paper off in the negative areas. I've got it burnished in, sanded. I should be able to make sure all my edges are down in there. We'll spray it with water, and then I'll be able to rub the paper off and just reveal the ink, so they'll look like that. As I said, the beeswax I get has a lot of tackiness to it because it still has honey in it. So it's not the same as the encaustic medium you buy at a art supply. So I'll spray it with water. I'll just kind of rub it around and just kind of take off that top layer real gently. It's funny, magazine paper kind of has layers. Some more than others. And it releases, the paper releases from the ink easier on some, and some hardly at all. But there are magazines, or especially some older magazines. If a magazine's over 4 or 5 years old, sometimes the pulp will kind of stay stuck to that ink. It's really hard to get off. So you can see the colors coming through. Unfortunately, I need to lower my camera where you get a little better view. But I try to put it up there so you don't see the back of my head too. I'll hold these up to the camera a little bit closer once I get more of the paper off. Right, so you can see some of them, it's still got a haze, a white haze on it. That's the pulp of the paper still sticking to the ink. Like I said, some of them you can tell in this heart, those vibrant reds, they come off real well. That's probably a Cigar Aficionado or maybe Architectural Digest, Miranda. And then the areas that's got the pulp on it still, it could be from the same like Architectural Digest or Veranda, but it may be like a 2010 magazine. The ink doesn't come off as well. I think over time that release is harder to get because they've bonded together better, I guess, over the years. I don't know. I wish I knew all the answers to that because it's easy to get really old magazines. Although I've gotten lucky, I found a connection now. I'm getting magazines from Nashville Airport. They have a wine bar, and they get Cigar Aficionado, which is one of my favorites. So I can go in there every couple of months and get 8 to 10 magazines, which is a lot of color for me. So that's one benefit of this process is my supplies don't cost me very much. My panels and my time is the two most expensive things. All right, let's see. Well, I put a lot of red in this one. When I'm doing this, I'm choosing colors, especially when I'm working on more than one. I don't get to see the colors I'm putting down as I'm working on. I have to kind of remember. When you're jumping back and forth from one to the next, you forget where you've put blues and reds and greens. Unless it's something like the wings, I usually have a good idea there because it's only 2 pieces. But those wings are pretty cool. It was from the stained glass windows in a church in Architectural Digest. Turned out really cool. Of course, now that I got the paper off, you can see I'm taking this cotton rag and I'm wetting it. It's got to be real wet or otherwise it would scratch the ink. And I'm able to kind of buff it. It brings out that color a little bit more. Next, I'm going to heat it up a little bit, and then I'm going to carve into these guys, and that's where I'll get those lines and details like that one has, or even the bee. I wish you could see the texture. Once I start drawing into it, there's a lot of little texture, almost like there's hair on the bee, because I take these tools. I've got all kinds here. I probably got more somewhere too. Got all these different tools I use to carve into them. If I get desperate, I go out in the garage and I find other tools. This is a good one to make a textured thing. It's got teeth on it. So, okay. Let's heat it up. I want to make sure that another reason you want to heat it is to sink that ink into the beeswax that fuses it together, makes it a stronger bond. And you can see, I don't know if you can tell or not, this is starting to get a haze back on it. Once that paper dries again, it'll get that hazy pulp back to it. Okay, so let's put some heat to it. You gotta pay attention when you're doing this one. I've learned you don't want to be texting somebody while you got the heat gun on your painting. You don't be looking at something else. Because you can see, if you was here in person, you'd be able to see the color of the wax turns into a cloudier yellow. And then the ink itself sitting on top of the wax will start to move around if you have the heat on too high and the fan's blowing it. So I kind of like to get it right on the edge before it wants to move around. Then I make sure I'm moving my gun around so I'm not putting too much heat in one area. Okay. There we go. We're heated up. Show you these up close. Now I want to do a little, I call it carving, cutting in the details. We'll make sure it's not too hot. It's kind of fun to cut through the wax with the tool. So here in the near future, I'm thinking about, instead of just selling little paintings like this, selling a kit so somebody can actually do the steps you just watched me at your own pace at home. Maybe we do, once I get the live thing figured out, we work together doing the different steps. I got a lot of things to figure out to do that, but that's something I'm thinking about. Maybe take one day a week where I do a quick little class, and you either go buy your own materials and use your own pattern, or I'll have something that I can send you a kit where you pretty much have what you need if you just want to do it once or twice, not really seriously do it that often. I could get the wax on the panel for you and a pattern cut, and some of the tools you could probably figure out at your house. If not, we could probably work a package deal where it all came together. Just a recent thought I had, so. I don't know if we got the same people watching now as I was watching earlier, but this is live, but I don't have the ability to read comments. I apologize if you're sending me messages. I'm assuming I'll be able to get to those after I get done with the video. Alright, so first thing I did was kind of outline the areas. Now I'm going to take this tool, a little scraper, and I'm going to remove the beeswax from outside the heart shape in the negative areas. And hopefully I'm not going to scrape away any of the ink. I've done that before. Gotta be careful doing this. You don't want your hand to slip. There we go. I'm trying to decide if I want to cut those honeycomb shapes into the heart like I did on this one. I kind of like that. I'm going to stop right there for now and do the other heart and think about that. Sometimes I get to a point, especially when it comes to this, I get ideas, but I don't want to commit to them yet, so I set it off to the side and just think about if that would work or not. Because once you take off, scrape away, you can't put it back. Of course, when I'm working small, I guess that's the whole reason I do it, is so I can make those decisions and go with it. And if it doesn't work, I'm not out that much, considering it's a different story when you're working on a 24 by 36 painting. about you, but I'm ready for the weekend. What's funny about me and my weekends is I got a weekend at home, so I'll probably be in the studio working. I don't have anywhere to go. I kind of like that. I tend to get more done on a weekend in the studio than I do during the week. Seems to be less distractions. I hope the ones that are watching are enjoying this. Sorry if it's a little boring. Keep in touch. We'll get better at it, I promise, and we'll be able to hopefully have some dialogue next time. I'll have to reach out to Shelly with Crafty Mamas and hit her up for some advice on some of the things I'm having problems with. If you haven't gone to watch Crafty Mamas, I highly recommend it. It's a cool little community. They make different things, different materials. I think she does her live feed twice a week, or once or twice a week. I can't remember. She's got a regular schedule. At some point I'll do that too. Just not right now. So there's those two. This was a new little thing I tried, just some different texture. Alright. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm going to go ahead and do the bee. The bees take a little longer. Of course, there's a lot smaller detail. It's a little tougher to cut the pieces for the bees too, because they're so tiny. Think about those little legs and the antennas, they're kind of small. So if you're not very seasoned at using an X-Acto knife, it can be a pain. I'm not a fan of doing these small pieces like this, but it's good practice. So on the bees too, sometimes I like to leave a little bit of the wax below the bee, so it looks like it's kind of stuck on him. Can you tell from his butt there coming out? There's a little bit of a beeswax still on the panel. I don't know if I have enough wax on this one to do that same effect. I may try it. A lot of my process is very meticulous, boring, but that's kind of what I like about it. Just me and my thoughts in the studio, unless I'm doing a video. Then I gotta think about what to talk about. I think that's why I like doing the videos every once in a while. I'm so used to just working by myself, music cranked up, or a podcast going. It's good to feel like I'm having a conversation with somebody, even though I can't communicate with you. You can hear me. I feel like you're listening. Sometimes when I'm carving the wax out of the negative areas too, I like to leave a bit of the wax on there, just give it a little texture. It's kind of cool. When I'm talking to somebody, showing them my work, they can feel one of these smaller paintings that, you know, it's not just a flat surface. think that's what a lot of people like about my processes. It really is a piece of art that can. It's easy to get a conversation striked up about it and how it's made. It's not just a normal acrylic painting, although I have a lot of respect for acrylic painters, especially some of my friends. Very good. It's common though, and most people already have an idea how things are done, unless the artist has a special technique they use to get maybe a certain effect. Um, with mine, there's not a whole lot of people that know about my process. Although I'm running across people in all around the world now that connect to me through social media, my old YouTube videos especially. I've got some YouTube videos from when I first started doing this. I want to say 2009, 2010, when I first started posting videos. I started doing the process 2008, and it's kind of evolved a lot since then. That bee turned out really cool. And the great thing about when I spray the Kamar resin on, Kamar resin puts a little bit of a sheen on it. It evens out the color because magazine papers and different inks transfer different. Some will have more of a sheen than others. So by taking the Kamar and spraying it, it evens out that surface. Texture all looks the same. You don't have a flat area and a shiny area. It's all the same. And then, of course, it protects it. And it makes the colors seem more vibrant than what they look right now. It's another bonus. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it off right here. You've kind of seen what I do, and hopefully you've enjoyed some of it. And once I figure out my live feed a little bit better, we'll do this again, and we'll be able to have a conversation. So, if I can read your comments, which I plan to make happen. If you watched live or as a recording, thank you. And if you want to see more of my work, you can click on my site, go to my website. But I'd love for you to subscribe and follow my feed. And I promise it's only going to get better from here. And I'll do classes here in the near future too. But thanks again. Have a good weekend.